To me, the Mercedes-Benz CLS has always been a car of contradictions. Here's a big four-door that likes to pretend it's a sleek coupe. A car that oozes fat cat luxury, it likes to be an athlete as well. This is the AMG version of the very latest all-new CLS, and Mercedes-Benz says it's better in absolutely every respect. Well, just one way to find out. Interestingly, the AMG version of the all-new CLS arrived in South Africa before the standard model. In fact, we haven't seen the bread and butter CLS350 yet. It's being launched locally this week, and we'll be getting our hands on an example soon too. But the AMG version does provide some indication of the core CLS styling traits. Most apparent is the more powerful, more aggressive front end. It echoes some of the SLS Gullwing's design cues. The car also gets a more muscular stance thanks to pronounced wheel arches and scalloped sides. The emphasis is on sleek, almost fluid elegance and smooth aerodynamic contours. But it's the rear that remains instantly recognizable, and for all the wrong reasons. It still droops and sags, emphasizing the extended rear overhang and handicapping what has become a very handsome car in other respects. By comparison, the CLS63 AMG oozes hardcore muscle. The AMG version of the CSL is obviously a lot more aggressive than the standard car, and it has all the embellishments you'd expect of a muscle machine. The front air dam is a lot deeper, it has larger air intakes. These fenders are wider to accommodate big 19-inch wheels. If you look at the rear, you'll see a thin boot spoiler and 4 large squared-off exhaust tailpipes, as well as a diffuser panel. Of particular note are the headlights. CLS63 AMG gets full LED lights as standard, including the main and dip beams, as well as the daytime running lights. There are a total of 71 LED lamps, and they have a 10,000-hour service life. The interior is pure AMG and almost exclusively black. That goes for the black leather upholstery, the black finishes on the dashboard, and the steering wheel, which is also squared off at the bottom. The mix of analog dials and digital displays gives a pretty intuitive interface for the driver, but there's enough switchgear here to make a jet pilot feel happy. Given the size of the CLS, the lavish interior space comes as no surprise. The front seats can be electrically adjusted in every plane and tweaked to suit individual ergonomic needs and preferences. The cabin oozes luxury and craftsmanship, together with a certain high-tech ambiance, which is not just an empty promise, as the CLS AMG literally bristles with advanced driver assistance systems. At the rear, the individually sculpted seating positions add a touch of indulgence. At least this time, that sloping roof doesn't rob rear occupants of headroom. High-tech features include active blind spot assist, which prevents drivers from turning into the path of a car in the driver's blind spot. There's also an active lane-keeping assist system, which stops drivers from straying into another lane. But for most buyers, the real attraction lies elsewhere. For the petrol heads, the real attraction is right here under the bonnet. It's a 5.5-litre V8 with twin turbochargers, producing 386 kilowatts of maximum power and 700 newton-meters of torque. Now that's 8 kilowatts and 70 newton-meters more than the previous 6.3-litre V8, although that one obviously was normally aspirated. But perhaps the most interesting statistic of all is the fuel consumption, which is 32% less than the 6.3 and now comes in at 9.9 litres for the combined cycle. Take that with a pinch of salt though. Driven with intent, the big Merc won't leave much left of 16 litres for every 100 kilometres. The gearbox is AMG's familiar speed shift MCT unit, which is effectively an autobox without a torque converter. It uses a wet clutch for starts and shifts gears as rapidly as a dual clutch design, while also offering a launch control function. Drive is to the rear wheels. Paddle shifts take care of the cog swaps, and there are 4 driving modes to choose from: Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus and Manual. The adaptive damping can also be firmed up manually or left to its own devices. Remember to open the windows. That V8 sounds just glorious, with enough of an edge to startle the neighbours. We've come to expect Merc's AMG cars to deliver unruly, almost scary and certainly edgy performance. In many ways, this particular AMG is no different. Even with the stability control switched on, you've got to be very careful with that accelerator, because if you give it a full amount of wheelie, it will definitely light up the rear and the tail will start getting all scraggly and wiggly. But there's more to this car than brute force. It does a better job of harnessing that urge, and there's less bulk to absorb all that momentum and throw it back at you as unwanted inertia. Lavish use of aluminium has kept the weight down and reduced unsprung mass. Given its size, a curb mass of 1,870 kilos is impressive, if hardly trim. Still, it allows a power-to-weight ratio of 206 kilowatts a ton, a figure that explains why a car measuring just 4 millimeters short of 5 meters long feels like a Quicksilver two-seater off the mark. The factory figures show a 0 to 100 time of 4.4 seconds, while top speed is limited to 250 kilometers an hour thanks to an electronic nanny that digs her heels in if you go too quickly. But to me, this car is not about straight line speed. It's all about response and tractability. In the mid-range, if you give this car a bit of gas, it's astonishing how quickly it goes. It's almost like engaging warp speed. The big Merc's overtaking prowess is simply devastating, and when the growl turns into that almost tactile metallic whine, you know it's time to hold on. Nor does it take much to unsettle the beast. Hit a bump, a dip or a wet patch under full acceleration and you'll feel the steering come alive as those big tyres start scrabbling for grip. However, with its rear air suspension and adaptive damping, the CLS63 AMG can also play the role of comfortable boulevard cruiser quite convincingly, as long as you remember to be gentle on the loud pedal. There's even an eco mode, which includes start-stop operation whenever the big Merc comes to a halt. An AMG muscle machine with a conscience. Bunny hugging will never be the same again. I said at the very outset that the CLS is a car of contradictions, and that's probably even truer of this AMG version. It's a monster in disguise, a clenched fist in a thin velvet glove, a race car in road car veneer. But unlike its predecessor, this car isn't compromised, and it does fulfill its multiple roles with great conviction. The result is a desirable, exclusive, and above all, a high-performance all-rounder. That said, I still think the rear end looks droopy, but then that's just my opinion. A high-tech twin-turbo V8 is at the very core of this latest AMG sibling, and it's one of the best yet, offering both abundant output and reasonable consumption. Add reduced mass, a lower center of gravity and a superb chassis, and you have one of AMG's best, but it might still prove too much of a handful for some.